Welcome to the LivXplore podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit like and subscribe. Welcome, everyone. I'm Sean Payne, founder and owner of LivXplore Real Estate and Lifestyle, and I have with me again Isaiah Chass, our founding agent.
Absolutely. Excited to be here. Part 2 of our rental management series on how to show your rental property.
That's right. So today we're going to go a little bit more in depth on what we touched on the last episode. So we went over like how to market your property and what to be careful of with fair housing laws. And so now you've done your advertising, and now you're getting inquiries on the property. And so just realize that time is of the essence when you get an inquiry. And so you want to respond as quickly as possible to the inquiry about the property, giving them more information that way, and reiterating the showing times and answering any questions they have that way. On average, tenants contact 5 landlords when looking for a new home, and over 80% of the tenants want to view the rental as the next step of the process. So speed is everything, getting back to those people as quickly as possible that way. And again, I know it can be difficult, especially if you're doing it yourself, but you want to look at your email and look for those little inquiries that come through and try to respond, within 10 or 20 minutes when they're still sitting at their computer or thinking about, where they want to live that way.
Absolutely. And you also want to, when it gets to the showing the aspect, you want to pre-qualify tenants, or I should say potential tenants before they're showing. Even just from a safety aspect, you don't want just anyone coming through your home. You want to know that only qualified and serious potential renters are coming through your home. So with that, it's a good idea to use online forms to pre-qualify tenants.
Right.
A lot of people are more comfortable using online forms to submit information than saying it over the phone. On top of that, it also allows you to have the same set of questions for every potential applicant, and that keeps you safe from, getting in trouble asking, little nuanced questions that could get you in trouble with fair housing laws.
Right.
Your screen questions should be concise. And they should be consistent, like I said. You don't want to say anything about, do you have a significant other? Do you have a girlfriend? But you should ask questions about, what their expected move-in date is, what your minimum credit score is, what your minimum income requirements are, what your if they have any pets. You don't want to be wasting your time if, a question that they answer on, the initial application isn't going to work out down the road. Get that in at the beginning so you know that if that person's not going to work out, you're not going to spend continued time with them.
Right.
As a rule of thumb, when it comes to credit score, it's a good idea. Anything over $1,000 per month, you want to require a minimum credit score of about 600. That being said, most rentals in the Bay Area are over $1,000.
Yeah,
so.
I was gonna say the guidelines Isaiah is talking about, this is coming from one of the credit agencies of what they recommend. But yeah, out here in the Bay Area, the North Bay Area, $1,000 a month rental, that'd be great, but it's going to be pretty much impossible to find. So,
right.
You're probably looking 3,000 above, something like that. So.
Right. And then also for income requirements, it's a good idea to have anywhere from 2 to 3 times the monthly rent. And again, this is a broad guideline. This isn't, for everyone, but it's a good idea to have 2 to 3 times the monthly income for that rental. Now, after the initial screening process and, the upfront questions before you show them, you want to have a set time of when you show these properties.
Yep.
So what are good times for this?
I just want to clarify. So good times, I would say usually like during the week, it's going to be like after 5 o'clock, early evenings for most people. And then during the weekend at various times. But I want to clarify last time is that, I'd recommend advertising set times, but those times aren't open houses. You only go through with those if you have people that have confirmed appointments that way. But you advertise certain times, and then you also don't do private showings either. And again, I'll go back to renters and potential renters are so flaky, you will spin your wheels. So you'll think you'll have like 5 or 6 interested parties, and all of a sudden you may have 1 or none that way. So again, I wouldn't recommend doing like an open house. I'd recommend advertising times, like you're going to do an open house, and then if you have a confirmed appointment, go through with it. But if you don't have a confirmed appointment, then you don't waste your time, going out there that way. And like I said, so often people are like, oh, I can't make that. Could we have a private time? Could I have a private showing at this time? I'd be very cautious of that, because again, like I found so many times that those people end up flaking. And if they really want the home, generally they'll make the time to go see it, even if they have a really busy schedule that way. So again, I'd recommend a couple times during the week, because you do want the home to be exposed. Things do come up. Like I'm kind of bashing tenants a little bit, but things do come up in life too. So all of a sudden you want to make something and you can't. So, but those people will generally communicate with you really well, and they'll say, hey, I'm sorry, I had this come up. Can I come to, Saturday's showing or something like that? So you want to create those opportunities. And the market is getting hotter, but generally I still find it takes a couple weeks of advertising and having these appointments to get people through the home. You want to make sure it is exposed, so that you have at the end of the time period that you're done renting, that you have a handful of good tenants that way.
Yeah, it's just so much different than the resale market. Tenants will throw an inquiry out to everything on the market. They're not very specific about it. They'll see what everyone has and try to get a showing with every single property. And a lot of times, they'll find one and then just not even let you know that.
Yes. And that's why you want to follow up with them. Because for that very reason, is that you can set appointments and you're like, oh, great, I have, 4 or 5 people coming to the home, and then they don't come. And then you call them up and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I rented out something, I forgot to call you. So yeah, follow up with them prior to when you're supposed to be meeting, and making sure that they come, and that'll save you a lot of time that way. And then also follow up after you show the property, follow up with them as well, because here's what happens is that you want to make sure that you have a pool of potential tenants. There may be a party that seems very well qualified to you, and on paper seems really good, but they may go get another rental or something like that. So what I would do is, everyone that comes through, follow up with them. They may give you negative feedback and say, no, this isn't the right property for them, this is too expensive, but take notes on everything, so that way, if by chance you don't have any prospective tenants, you can look at the feedback and say, well, you know what, I think my security deposit's too high, or you know what, maybe I'm asking a little bit too much. Again, as a homeowner, having that emotional attachment to the home, that often happens. So you can see what happens, but you can see the feedback you're getting there, but you also want to know, like, hey, they do like the property, because again, someone, the applicant that you think you have may disappear, and then you want that backup that way. And respond quickly. Make sure that you stay in touch with them that way, and so that you don't lose anyone potentially. You want to have good communication. And if a tenant's ready to apply, then what I'd recommend is giving them an application. Do not just start off with a background and credit check. Go through the application, process the application, do some due diligence, just to make sure there's no red flags. You don't want to run a credit report for someone, and then all of a sudden there's something on their basic application that you wouldn't allow them to qualify for anyway. So take some time, go through that application. If it looks good and you want to move forward, then at that point talk to them about doing a background and credit check that way. So.
Yeah, and I can't reiterate enough, follow up with everyone afterwards. See if they don't like it, why is that? I know we talked about this in last part of the series is why is it that they don't want to submit an application? Is it because of a pet? Is it unfurnished? Is it furnished? We're dealing with property right now where there could be a potential tenant just if we put a king size mattress in versus a queen size. So if there's little things that you can accommodate for, get feedback from them and see what it will take to make it work for those tenants. And then for the people that do want to submit an application, walk them through that process. There are some online software that can help process that or walk you through that process. But we'll get into that more, the screening process, in the next part of the series.
Yeah, you definitely want to. I mean, there's a lot of applications out there online. You want to use look for someone that looks reputable and use a standard application. You want to make sure that you give everyone all the same application that way. And then once you have that application back, like I said, you do want to vet. You want to qualify people on a high level. So if all of a sudden on the application they have a pet, and you advertise that there was no pets, make sure that that's not a service animal. Again, make sure that like they didn't include that on the application to let you know they had a service animal and not a pet. You don't want to discriminate against them. Go through everyone that anyone that's going to be living in the home that is over 18. Again, we're going to get to this later on, but make sure that they're included on the application. If you're renting a property, like let's say you're in a senior community where you have to be 55 and over, go through the applicants and make sure that you're not renting this out to someone who doesn't meet that 55 or older requirement, or someone that's on the application that's only allowed to stay in that community for like 30 days or something like that. So just make sure that you're not making any mistakes that way. And then also the move-in criteria. So it's often that like someone loves the home, but they can't move in for 6 weeks or 5 weeks or something like that. Just make sure that there's not a misunderstanding that they're not going to take it in 2 weeks or 1 week. There may be a time period that way. And that may be how you evaluate tenants as well, as you may have two really good tenants, but one is chomping at the bit to get in something, and someone else is 6 or 8 weeks down the road that way. So you really want to look at that. And also, when if you have multiple people on an application, you want to make sure that you take the time to combine the income and assets and make sure your math is correct, so that no one can come back and say, hey, why wasn't I qualified? Well, it was because of this, and you misunderstood something or processed the information wrong on the application. Qualify tenants at a high level, make sure that you do it right so there's no issues that come back and get you that way. I touched on it for a second, but make sure that anyone over 18 years old fills out the application. Do you want to go a little bit more into that?
Yeah, and we'll get into that in the next part of the series in episode 3 of how to screen your tenant. But overall, you want to, I guess the emphasis is follow up with your tenants and get an idea of if they want to submit, if they don't want to submit an application, walk them through that process. You touched on a little bit about if there's 55 plus community. That's something we didn't talk about earlier, but if there are CCNRs or restrictions in the community you live in, that's something you want to check in and
Yes.
make sure that you're actually allowed to, lease out your property. So I think that covers most of each part of the process of showing your rental property. Next episode, we'll get to you with the screening process a little bit deeper.
Yep. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. I'm Sean Payne, founder and owner of LivXplore. If you find this or any of our podcasts informational, please hit like and subscribe. Isaiah, thank you very much for joining me today on this.
Absolutely.
And we'll be back soon.
See you guys next time.
Welcome to the LivXplore podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit like and subscribe.